Welcome Formula One fans, and it is the start of the 2023 Formula One season. This is the Formula One News Hour, and I'm your host, Jonathan Steele. It is good to be back, and it's good to be watching live racing again. But let's start today's podcast with thanking those folks that make it all possible: Phenology, Cloud Hub, Give Send Go, and L American. And while we're talking about thanking people and promoting people, I'd like to go ahead and promote my books. For those of you who don't know, on top of being an engineer, a podcaster, I am an author. And I have published 3 books, and the latest one, The Hunted, just got published about 2 weeks ago. And if you would like a copy, you can go to your favorite bookstore and order it, or you can get it instantly online at Amazon. Just type in The Hunted, Jonathan Steele, and up the book will pop. My first 2 books, The Lost Identity and The Senator, begin the journey of the Edwards twins. So starting next week, we're going to have a little competition. We're going to give you all a week to go out and buy the book, and then we're going to have a little competition and a little reward for those who can answer, or the person that can answer the questions correctly. But now let's get back to Formula One, and it's very, very interesting. Before the race starts, there's always about an hour's worth of interviews and things like that, the histories of Formula One, and going back over the seasons and talking about the cars and all those things. What's very interesting is Martin Brundle had His Royal Highness, the head of Bahrain, who is also the Prime Minister. And what's really interesting is that the gentleman from that part of the world has a very posh English accent, a little more posh than mine. Mine's not really posh, but he has a very, very distinct upper crust English accent, which tells you that he spent all of his time growing up in the United Kingdom and going to school there. So just a little bit of things. The world is very small now, and Formula One proves that with having a number of races, 24 to be exact, this year in all parts of the world, and we're looking forward to it. So in just a few minutes, we'll get the start of the Bahrain Grand Prix, and the track is Sakhir, and we'll be bringing that to you in just a few moments. Okay, Formula One fans, we are getting ready to start. They are just bringing up the starting grid in the background, and we will get rid of the TV noise so you can just listen to me. Won't that be fun? So anyway, as I mentioned yesterday, the Red Bull are on the very front. They've got pole, and they have number 2 position. So if they play that right, they should stay in that position throughout the first 2 or 3 laps anyway. And if they've got just a little more speed than the Ferraris and the Mercedes, it will probably end that way. But I do think we're going to have a really exciting race, because the times between the first and the 6th car is only 400ths of a second. So there's not much in it. In fact, Max Verstappen has pole position by 5,000th of a second. So, and the distance, the time between the first and the last place on the grid is only 1.1 seconds. So I think we're in for an exciting day of racing, and I also think we're in for an exciting season of racing. So we're just waiting. The cars are going to come up onto their warm-up lap. That's where, if you remember yesterday, we were talking about, it's kind of like the out lap for the qualifying, where the cars start to get their tires up to temperatures. One of the new rules in Formula One this year is that they are allowed to keep the blankets on the tires at the same temperatures, but they are not allowed to have them on as long. So that's going to be interesting the first few laps of the race, as they get the tires up to the temperatures and up to sticking. The temperatures here in Bahrain, incidentally, it is about 6:30, 7 o'clock in Bahrain right now, coming up 3 o'clock in the UK. As I mentioned yesterday, all the Formula One races are brought to us by Sky Sports. here in the US. They're licensed from Sky Sports by ESPN. So for those of you, those Formula One fans that want to watch, just go to Formula One on ESPN. Be careful on race day, because they generally the opening introduction is brought to everybody by, I think it's ESPN Plus or something like that. And then it shuts off suddenly, and then you've got to change the channel to go to ESPN2. So as they go through their warm-up laps, we're just going to watch and see how the cars are acting. Like I said, the temperatures are dropping. It gets cool, quite cool in the evening in that part of the world. If you've never been, by the way, you should go. Put that on your bucket list. Especially to Bahrain, Abu Dhabi, Qatar, and places like that. You'll have a really wonderful time and get to experience some of the culture for that part of the world. Some of it you'll find fairly restrictive, but once you get past that and just enjoy the culture and enjoy the people, you'll have a really good time. Just a couple of weeks ago, they had the Abu Dhabi tennis tournament. So it has a lot of sports in that part of the world as well. And for you golfers out there, for those of you who are watching, of course, the Live Golf headquarters comes from that part of the world as well. I believe Abu Dhabi is the sponsoring entity for the Live Golf tournament. So there's lots of things to do, and one of them, of course, is to watch the Sakhir Bahrain Formula One Grand Prix, which will start in just a few moments. A little bit of interesting news for you Formula One aficionados out there. Max Verstappen, I think this is his fifth time here at this track, and he has yet to win. He has come close, but last year, of course, he had to not drop out per se, but drop out. His car developed performance problems, and he ended up back in the middle of the pack. But it's interesting that a guy as successful as he is has not won this race. Of course, our good friend Lewis Hamilton has. And they are lining up. The last cars now are coming in after the formation lap. And so this race is going to get underway in about, I'm going to say, there's the green flag that tells the starter to start the lights. And in Formula One, they have a series of red lights. And then the minute they all go out, that's when the race starts. And the race has started. And the two Red Bulls are getting out front. Max Verstappen has got a wonderful start. He's way out front, the Ferraris, and you see the Red Bull cars blocking off the Ferraris, and he has not managed to hold off. And when I say he, Checo Perez has not managed to hold off Charles Leclerc. So it's Verstappen, Leclerc, Perez, and then Sainz. So very interesting start, and Perez is in a danger of being placed back into fourth place. He has held on. So let me see if I can get this. The mass dash to the first corner ended up with Checo Perez giving up a position to Charles Leclerc. So very interesting. What is interesting is it appears that Max Verstappen has plenty of additional power compared to the rest of the field. He's already pulling ahead. They're about halfway through the track, and it looks like he's opened up a good half second to 3/4 of a second lead. Now in Formula One, they cannot use DRS until I think it's third or fourth lap. So there's no chance that at this point that anybody is going to pass Max Verstappen at this point of the race. So we're going to come up here in just a few moments, and already Verstappen has opened up a 1.2 second lead on Leclerc, and we have our first yellow flag of the race. So we didn't even get through the first lap, and we have a yellow flag, and we'll find out what that is for in just a moment. Like I say, it looks like Verstappen has plenty of car into which he may well dominate this race, which is going to be, from my opening comments, it's going to be very, very surprising. The yellow flag has come in on sector 2, so that's going to be one of the cars in the rear of the field. And in fact, what it is that it looks like one of the Aston Martins just cut off one of the Williams cars. So why he did that? It's like he came all the way across the track and just really bumped into the front wheel of that Williams car. So I wouldn't be surprised if that guy has to come in and get some, either could well need some front end repair work, maybe get the nose cone replaced. These cars are built so that they can pull off those nose cones, put on a new one in a matter of about 15 to 20 seconds, but which might not sound like a lot, but in Formula One, that is a lot. If you were leading the race and you had to do that, then you would always go from number 1 position all the way down to number 13 or 14th position. So it's a big deal. They're back to racing now, and Max Verstappen has continued his dominance, and he is well out there. In fact, he is still holding that 1 point. Well, it's dropped a little bit, which is understandable after they go from yellow back to green. But he has still got nearly a 1.15 second lead over Charles Leclerc. Fernando Alonso has dropped a position. George Russell has dropped a position, and Lewis Hamilton has maintained his position. So right now we have Verstappen, Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, and Checo Perez. Not in that order. Sorry, it's Verstappen, Leclerc, Perez, and Sainz in that order. So the cars really are now settling in. We've got the first lap under our belt, and you're going to see now some of the race strategies come into play, and of course we'll be bringing those to you as the race goes along. And just watching a replay of that little incident, it was in fact Lance Stroll coming flying across the track like that, and hitting Alonso. So that answers why Alonso has dropped down a little bit in the field. And you know, Lance Stroll, if any of the drivers really have an issue and amongst the other drivers, it's Lance Stroll. Now, there might be a little bit of excuse for him right now. He's driving with damaged wrists, and found out this morning a broken toe. I would think the broken toe would be more of an issue than the wrists, just because of the footwork that's involved in driving these cars. But last year, if you remember, at the Austin, down here in Austin, Texas, he took out Alonso completely. Well, Alonso, he took himself out completely, and Alonso went on to come in 5th in that race. But certainly we can attribute to what happened to Alonso dropping down there to Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll, it looks like he has dropped down into 9th place from 6th place after that little incident. But right now the cars are settled in, and really Max Verstappen, we're on lap 4, and Max Verstappen is absolutely dominating. He is now up to 3.4 seconds ahead of Leclerc, nearly 5 seconds ahead of his teammate. So whatever we saw in the closing of the cars in free practice and qualifying, we are certainly not seeing it in race conditions. And I think when I talked to you about the free practice, in the free practice they had a race simulation, and I mentioned then that it looked like Verstappen had about a half second per lap, maybe 0.4 of a second per lap lead or advantage over the rest of the field, and that's certainly playing out right now. So he's now, we've just going into lap 5, and he already has a 4-second lead. So it looks like all the cars have settled in. Interesting, Valtteri Bottas has really moved up the field. He's into 6th sorry, he's up to 9th place, but he started all the way down there in the back of the field. Magnussen is pulling up the rear of the field, and let's see in a moment if we can see how the rookies in this year's Formula One are doing. They'll put those positions back up on the screen here in just a moment. They're busy doing a replay right now, but we will get and we will see how the rookies are doing. And Hülkenberg is in 15th. He's not really a rookie, but he's a rookie for this season. He's been out for a couple of years. Piastri, the Australian, is in 16th position. And where is, let's see, Logan Sargent is doing quite well. He's in 19th. It's really interesting to see the Williams cars. They started this last year, but the Williams cars have done quite a good job of bringing themselves out of the bottom of the field and getting up now into the middle of the field. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Williams coming home in the constructors championship race somewhere in maybe either 4th or 5th, which would be a huge improvement for them, because I think last year they were 9ths with Haas being in the 10th position. So the rookies are doing okay. And I've got one more rookie we've got to find here. Hülkenberg, Piastri, Gasly. We've got one of them running in 19th position. That's Nick De Vries. He, if you remember, filled in for I think it was Lewis Hamilton last year in one of the Mercedes and brought it home in 9th position. And that, of course, is why he has a ride in Formula One this year. So we're coming up, we're on lap 10, and Max Verstappen has, I've just been listening, I'll turn it down again. Max Verstappen is clocking up about 0.6 of a second lead on the field every lap. So quite frankly, that's in Formula One racing, that's huge. It's back in the days when I used to watch Formula One, of course, they used to, they'd win by 2 or 3 laps, or 2 or 3 minutes or whatever. But in this day and age, to win a race by 5 or 10 seconds is a really comfortable win. And if Verstappen keeps up this pace, he's going to almost lap everybody on the field, which is just amazing. But we're going to be coming up here in probably another 5 or 10 laps for those cars that started on the soft tires, which is Ferrari, by the way. We're going to start seeing those tires degrade, and so they're going to lose even more time to folks like Verstappen, who started off on the hard tire. Some of the cars in this race are going to go for a 2-stop strategy, and some of them on a 1-stop strategy. And I'm going to think it's going to be the 1-stop strategy that will win. But I'm being contradicted by the folks on that are commentating the race, who have a lot more knowledge about today's cars than I do, and they are saying that a 2-stop strategy will in fact win the race. And in fact, we've got our first pit stop of the race coming in right now, and that is Pierre Gasly, and he has changed out his soft tires and gone to the hard. So he may have an extra set of soft that he can use at the end of the race. Some of the strategies are start on soft, go to hard, finish on soft. Some are start on hard, go as much of the race as you can in the hard, and then finish on the soft, because soft tires are always quicker in the very, very beginning. Max Verstappen is complaining a little bit about sluggish downshift on the car. All these cars, for those of you who are driving a car that's 10 years old or younger, and you've got a little paddle shifter on the back of your steering wheel, well, on these Formula One cars, both the clutch and the gear shift is paddle shift, so it's all electronic. So the feet are really just using the gas pedal and the brake. So back in the days, the race car drivers used to do a lot of what we call towing and heeling, as I explained last year. That's the technique of using the brake pedal and the gas pedal with the same foot at the same time, while the left foot is working the clutch. But they don't have to do that anymore, so they can use both feet on the gas and brake if they want, or they can just go backwards and forwards between the brake and the gas with one foot. I'm sure that's just a driver preference, because now with the clutches being electronic, then it's on the back of the steering wheel. Incidentally, on the Formula One cars, we did a thing on the steering wheel last year, but typically the clutch is on the left, and then they have two paddles on the right for upshift and downshift. So it's amazing what the technology can do today. It's just great. It's amazing to watch, and it's a real pleasure to understand what the technology was 50 and 55 years ago, and watching the technology at play today. And watching, the technology is not just in the car itself. If you look at tire changing, wheel changing, it's down to 2.5 seconds. It used to be 2, 3, 4 minutes where the cars would come in, and the driver could almost have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea while they're changing out his tires. But of course, those days are long gone. And it's much more thrilling, of course, to watch all of these tires changing out 4 wheels in 2.5 seconds. So it looks like Max Verstappen's interval is just growing and growing. We're on lap 12, and he's now right at 8 seconds. Checo Perez has dropped back a little bit from Leclerc, and that's because his team told him just relax. Look, the Ferrari started on the soft tires, so those, as I just mentioned, those tires are going to go away from them in a little bit, and then Checo Perez will move back up into the front position. And I thought we were going to see another car coming in, but Mercedes, in fact, Lewis Hamilton is struggling, and his teammate wants to go past him. So anyway, okay, I was wrong. It looks like just about everybody in the front started on the soft tire. So I had just told you that the Red Bull had started on the hard tires, and they have not. So right now the top 12 cars all started on soft, and that would make sense, because they're all on soft tires. But from the bottom 12 on down, they all started, with the exception of Alex Albon on Williams, they all started on the hard tire. And now we are starting to see the tire change laps coming in, and the first one to come out for Mercedes is Lewis Hamilton. And as I just pointed out, Lewis Hamilton is struggling with his car, and so it may be getting the change of tires will help him out. While I was watching that for you and looking at Lewis Hamilton coming in, then the car of the Aston Martin I'll get it out in a minute. The Aston Martin of Alonso passed past the Mercedes, and so now Alonso is up into 5th position. So we now have Red Bull, Ferrari, and now Aston Martin. And they've been watching, and I've been watching, and kind of hearing in the background that the Aston Martin is quite a bit quicker than the Mercedes and maybe the Ferraris. So we may be in for an exciting race. It looked like it was going to get pretty dull there for a minute, because the top 4 cars were just pulling away from the field, and especially Max Verstappen. But it looks like we are going to get an exciting race after all. And now the Ferraris are coming in for a tire change, and it's just amazing to watch. Four wheels in and off in 2 seconds. Nobody really gets less than 2 seconds, but it's a team of 3 guys per wheel, and 1 supervisor. Got to have the supervisor. So you've got the gun guy, then you got the guy that takes the wheel off, the guy that puts the wheel back on. So that makes 12 guys to change the tires and wheels, and 1 guy to supervise and make sure they're doing a good job. Of course, he's not there to supervise them and tell them he's doing a good job. He is there mainly as a signal to the driver to go. Because you've got a jackman in front and a jackman in the rear, and yes, the drivers can sense when the car's being put down, but those jacks have to come out and get away before he can go, and the driver can't see that. And so the supervisor is the kind of guy that gives the signal to go. Of course, they're talking to him on the radio all the time as well. And incidentally, for those of you over in Europe that are getting this podcast, Sky Sports has got a nice feature this year, and that is they've got cameras and commentary inside each and every car. And you can pick which driver or which car that you want to focus on during the race, which another good use of technology. You know, I'm in the technology field, and I'm very critical of technology because I think in a lot of areas we're relying on technology too much. You know, we're talking about having autonomous cars and trucks and things like that, and we can't even make our iPhones work without going on the blink. So, and the other thing that I bring up is, you know, they've had autopilots and auto takeoff. You know, most of your planes today, if you fly a lot, you'll know the pilot programs the computer, puts it up to the beginning of the runway, and off it goes, and then it lands at the other end. It does not need any pilot intervention at all. So why do they have the pilots on there? Well, you guessed it, because technology can go wrong, especially in software. Remember, software is just a human function of a person and a keyboard. And as we all do these days, we all make typos. Well, so do programmers. Now they have software that kind of finds those typos, but as you know, sometimes you go to do something on your iPhone and it just completely goes wonky on you. Then that's because there was some errors, some typos in the code that runs your iPhone. So anyway, back to the Formula One race. The interval. Something must be going terribly wrong with the Charles Leclerc's car. Well, he came in for a pit stop, of course, but the gap that Verstappen has opened up now is right at 12 seconds, and it's just amazing. And the Aston Martins are making their way to the front of the car, to the front of the race, and it's really good to see. It's good to see Mercedes being challenged. It would be great to see Red Bull being challenged. You know, I don't want to sit here this entire season and just talk to you about how great Verstappen and Red Bull are going. I want to talk to you about how a lot of the other cars are going. And we've just seen our first retirement from the race, and I'm going to find out who the driver is. Oh, it's the young Australian Piastri. His McLaren is in the garage and out of the race. We'll find out in a moment what caused that. And as soon as I find out, I will bring it to you. So we've gone through most of the tyre changes, and we still have Sergio Perez to come in and get his tyres changed, but Esteban Ocon came in and had to serve a 5-second time penalty, and that is because on the starting grid, when the race started, his front wheels were over the line. On the starting grid, there is a line where all the drivers have to put their front wheels to start, and apparently his was over that line, so he had an unfair advantage of maybe a foot or 2 feet. But like I say, the Formula One rules are very strict, and they enforce them. So right now we've gone through all of the tire changes, like I said, with the exception of Perez, who is leading the race right now, but they are going to change his tires now. They are coming out. And so in the Formula One world, when they want to bring a driver in, they say box, box, and they have done that for Perez, and he is coming in down pit lane. He's stopping right now, getting his tires changed, and he is off again. So as fast as I can talk, they can change 4 wheels and tires. So it's going to be interesting to see where he comes back out. Max Verstappen has a 11-second lead. And we're only on lap 20 out of 54. So we're not even halfway through the race. So if it keeps going like this, he's going to win this race by, unless something goes wrong, by 20-25 seconds. So Perez has come back out and he's in 3rd position. He's still ahead of Carlos Sainz. So after all of the pit stops, we have Verstappen, Leclerc, Perez, Sainz, Hamilton back up there in 5th place, being challenged by Alonso, and that's just because of the tyre change as they came in, got their tyre changes. But Alonso is ahead of Russell, And Valtteri Bottas has got himself up into 8th place, and Lance Stroll is in 9th place. So pretty much the starting order is pretty much where it was. Some little changes in actual positions, but nothing that big to speak about. What's interesting to me is how poorly the McLarens are doing. One of them is out of the race, and the other one is in 18th position. The only guy, well, they've just changed that. He's now in 19th position. So both McLarens are dead last, and one of them will be dead last because he's in the pits. And the other one is right as in running order is dead last. So that is a very big surprise, because last year, at least Lando Norris was finishing up in the top 5 and certainly in the top 10, and they rid themselves of Danny Ricciardo because Danny Ricciardo was finishing in the 12th through the 15th position most of the time, and it looks like McLaren's going to do well to finish anything above 16th or 17th. So that's a benefit to the Haas cars. Both Haas cars are at the 16th and 17th position. So if they keep going like that, they could work themselves up the field. But the biggest surprise, of course, is Aston Martin. The Alpine cars, which, if you remember, used to be the French team, but the Alpine cars are struggling as well this year, which is a surprise because they've got 2 really good drivers, and the team principal for Alpine is a very knowledgeable guy. He's been around a very long time, and so it's very interesting to see Alpine struggling. Interesting. That's very interesting. So some of these guys have got to be on a 2-stop strategy, because they're just bringing up some of the tires they're using, and while most of them are on hard tires now, some of them have gone to the soft tire, which is interesting because there's really strict rules around how you can run your tires and how you can use them. I think I mentioned that yesterday. You've got to start with the tires that you used in qualifying. So Max Verstappen is still complaining about the downshift, but I guess it's sluggish, but it doesn't seem to be affecting his performance, as he's now opened up an 11-second lead on second place Leclerc. So we're going to just see how things unfold here. We'll be coming up to the halfway mark probably in about another 10 minutes, 15 minutes. These races typically go 1.5 hours, so we'll see how things progress here over the next 10-15 minutes. So we're coming up on halfway through the race, and very little has changed from the beginning. When we start looking at positions up and down, most of the top 10 cars are still in pretty close, maybe one position different, up or down. And so the interesting thing that's coming up here is that we really thought we would see a lot of really competitive overtaking and some strategies that would change the positions of these cars and drivers as the race went on dramatically, and I don't see that happening. So far, really, other than being quite amazed at the drive of Max Verstappen, it's turning out to be one of the race just like last year. With the exception of the midfield and the backfield last year, the drivers and the cars, there were more wrecks, of course, and more spin-offs, but there were also a lot of drivers changing positions, changing up or down, 6 or 8 positions. And the biggest position change so far in this race is 3 positions. That, over half a race, that's nothing. But what it does tell us is that the qualifying of these cars and where they were in qualifying is really playing out to be true in the race itself. And what Formula One had hoped for was when they made these cars, and what, quite frankly, I am hoping for is that as these cars, became much more competitive with each other in terms of times and stuff like that, that you would see some real challenges for passing and drivers really being aggressive and using the DRS system to get through the guys ahead of them. But so far, we're going to see in just a moment probably. Perez is gaining about half a second per lap on Leclerc, and that's because of the differences in tires. But also the Red Bull car is just a little faster. But that looks like it's going to be the only kind of exciting thing to go on in this race so far. We are still seeing a little bit of porpoising from the Ferraris and from the Mercedes, but it doesn't look like the drivers themselves can do anything more with the cars than what's actually going on in the race right now. And so now we are seeing Perez right up, and he is going to enable DRS here during the next lap, maybe 2 laps, and he is going to pass Leclerc and put Red Bull back into 1-2, which will give us the exact the way the cars are in the track halfway through, exactly the same way as they started, with the exception, of course, that we've got one McLaren out of the race and the other McLaren is running. In fact, he's not dead last now. Esteban Ocon is dead last driving the Alpine. And that's because, if you remember, I just said he got a penalty for positioning wrong at the start of the race. Well, he just got another penalty because when they were serving the penalty, they put their hands on the car too soon. They started working on the car too soon. And the rules say when you're serving your penalty, nobody can touch the car. The guys can't wipe it down. You must keep all hands off the car. And as we watched on the replay, it was very evident that the crew was putting their hands on the car. They had to change the nose gear, and as they did that, they started undoing the clips that do that before the 5-second penalty was up. So he served another 5-second penalty for violating the 5-second penalty in the beginning. So that's actually the most exciting thing that's happened in the race so far. Well, other than Lance Stroll's little mishap, but anyway, the running order is exactly like it is, and now Checo Perez is into second position as he just went past Charles Leclerc. So we at 26 laps, which now is a little over halfway through this race, or exactly halfway through the race actually, then we have the exact same running order in the top 10. Yeah, in the top 10, with the exception that Alonso has moved up past George Russell. So I would expect Alonso is gaining on Hamilton. So maybe Alonso is going to be the only one that is going to kind of throw some excitement into this race going forward, because it's quite evident that Red Bull is dominating again. So with 30 laps under our belt, Verstappen now has such a large lead that he can come in and do another tyre pit stop and go back out, and he will only be second place, a couple of seconds behind his teammate Checo Perez, which he would, being on new tyres and Perez on older tyres, he would be again in the lead very comfortably. The only other interesting things that's going on in this race is the number of pit stops by and pieces of front wings that are falling off some of the other cars. The Haas cars have been in and had their nose piece replaced. The Alpines have had their nose piece replaced. and the McLarens have had their nose piece replaced. So something's going on with the aerodynamics on those cars, and literally pieces of the nose. They have these little things sticking up on the wings. If you fly a lot, if you look out on the wings of the plane, you'll see those little pieces sticking up on the end of the wing, on the end of the wings, and that's for aerodynamics. And these Formula One cars have the very same things on the front, right in front of their wheels, and they're falling off for whatever reason. If you remember yesterday, during qualifying, they had a red flag because that same thing happened to a Ferrari. It wasn't the wing piece that fell off; it was the aerodynamic shield around the front wheel, his right front wheel, that caused that issue. So this is the most interesting thing about the race so far, is that the cars themselves seem to be falling prey to, I guess, large wind forces that are breaking pieces off. So they're going to have to think about the materials that they're building these nose cones with, and strengthen that, because it's killing them as far as race position, because they come in to change a nose cone, and you're going to lose, as I mentioned, just to change the nose cone, which is very fast, 10, 15, 20 seconds to change that. But in a race like that, 10, 15 seconds is a lot of time. So Max Verstappen, this is just getting ridiculous, because now he's really a full 20 seconds ahead of his competition, and we're just over halfway. We're in lap 32 now. So from a Red Bull perspective, it's very interesting. And now it looks like we're going to have more pit stops, tire changes coming in. So the cars that are on a two-stop strategy, and by the way, that is all three of the top contenders, four now, I would say, because I've got to put Aston Martin in as a top contender. But the top four teams, that's Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, and Aston Martin, are all on a two-stop strategy. So we're seeing the Mercedes come in right now and do that, and also Aston Martin. Lance Stroll has just come in, so we'll see Fernando Alonso here in a moment. Incidentally, at the COTA race last year, I asked Fernando Alonso, I think I might have mentioned this last year, what would he be if he wasn't a Formula One driver? Because, as I mentioned yesterday, and he's in his 22nd year. And it was really funny, because he really didn't know. He said, I've been doing competitive driving since I was 3 years old, so maybe I'd be a comedian. Kind of interesting. But you can see how these guys start very, very young, and they also, by the way, are finished at a very young age. Older today than back in the 60s and 70s. Although some of the drivers back then didn't start till they were in their 30s and 40s, but for the most part, the really top drivers, they were driving Formula One at 22, 23, and then they were done by the time they're 10 years later. And now we're seeing these drivers staying with it a lot longer, and we're seeing really just a whole series of cars. Ferraris are coming now and changing their tires. So right now we have Carlos Sainz and George Russell in the pits getting the tires changed. So where is that going to put them at the end of this strategy? They're going to come back out, and everybody's going to be in pretty much the same position as they went in. It's not really making for the exciting race that I was really expecting after qualifying yesterday. But maybe it's because these cars are so close and the drivers are so close that maybe the whole idea that Formula One had of getting these cars to be so competitive with each other, that really, it's, as I've mentioned before, and I think I've said this a couple of times. Juan Fangio once said that the car's 65%, or the team is 65%, and the driver's the rest. And at the COTA race last year, I asked that question, and the honest ones said, you know, the team's 90% and we're 10%. And really, maybe we're going to see this year that 10% really be the difference in how these cars come in the final positions, who makes podiums and who doesn't. But certainly we're seeing the cars really just they're close. They're within, you know, a couple of seconds of each other, which is really nice. But you're not really seeing a big challenge for positions, other than to get back to the position where they started the race, which we don't want to see. We want to see a lot of drivers challenging each other and getting past each other, using that DRS system to pass and then get past, and you know, because that's what makes the race exciting, because you never really know who's going to win and who's going to be second or third. But right now, unless Max Verstappen and Checo Perez, unless their cars just quit in the track, the finishing order is going to be the starting order. So making the podium will be Verstappen, Perez, and Leclerc. But you know, we've still got 20 laps to go. So let's hope that we see some exciting stuff. Even if it is, you know, Red Bull car dies on the track or something, at least it'll open up maybe some challenges from the rest of the field to try and get to that first position. But right now, we're pretty much the running order is pretty much the starting order, with the exception that we've got Alonso that has placed himself in fourth position between the two Ferraris. So Ferraris don't have the pace that we were hoping they would. And we don't know if it's the car or the driver, but right now Leclerc is coming in to the pit stops for his pit stop to have his tyres changed. And like I said, in the 2 seconds that it's taken me to tell you about this, he is already in the pits, and well, he's in and got his tyres changed, and he's back out, and he's now making his way down pit road. Talking to pit road, I don't know if I mentioned this, but Esteban Ocon, who got a penalty. No, I did mention it. He got a penalty no, I didn't mention this. So he got a penalty for not serving his penalty properly. Then he got a penalty because when he went in for the penalty to serve his penalty, he got a speeding penalty for going down pit road too fast. So Esteban Ocon, who is now running dead last, of course, because he's got 20 seconds in pit stop penalties, or not pit stop penalties, but 20 seconds in penalties, and so he is dead last, and the McLaren of Norris is in 18th position. But remember, the other McLaren dropped out of the race, and we found out that Piastri's McLaren developed hydraulic problems. And interesting thing, they're not allowed to top up or to put oil into the cars when they lose their oil, and that's because the oil, if it's missing, is on the track somewhere, and they don't want that oil continuing to damage the track. So we've got Perez coming in for his tire change right now, and like I said, even when he comes in and Verstappen comes in, it's going to be, like I said, unless something dramatic happens to these cars, it's going to be a 1-2 Red Bull finish, and it looks like Alonso now has passed Leclerc. So we got a little bit of excitement going on. We've got Alonso now in a podium position for Aston Martin, and I don't know when the last time an Aston Martin was on the podium. But Lance Stroll has moved up as well, one place. He's in 7th place now. He started in 8th. So that's about the excitement, and I don't see Lance Stroll getting past. In fact, okay, so we've just had some changes because of the tire rotation. That's how Alonso ended back up there. So right now we're right back to where we started the race, with the exception that Alonso is splitting the two Mercedes, and we're watching now a replay of the Perez tire change, and he actually took about 3.5 seconds. And that was because, remember, I told you the guys telling them it's in fact it's not. I'm off by a little bit. It was 2.7 seconds, but that's that 0.5, that half a second is a huge difference. But that's because the jackman didn't get out of the way properly. So that if you ever get to go see a Formula One race, in the evening time, they do simulations of the tire change. They do training, right? So if you ever get a chance, you can get down close. Everybody's left the stands, and about an hour, 2 hours after the race is over, or qualifying's over, or practice is over, in the evening time, you'll see them practicing tire changes. They will simulate. They have these special guns with special nuts, and they will simulate the gun stripping the nut. They'll do all kinds of simulations so that they're trained and ready during the race for if something does go wrong like that they can resolve it. I think it was 2 years ago, Valtteri Bottas, when he was driving for Mercedes, he actually had to drop out of the race because he went in and it's easy to blame the tire crew, but in actual fact, what happened was Bottas stopped 2 feet further forward than he should have done, and so the gunman's hands were at a slight angle coming up to the wheel nut. And so when he hit that gun, these guns are really powerful. If you were to try and hold one without the training, the thing would just spin off in your hands. But anyway, it stripped the nut, and so they couldn't get the wheel off to get it changed, and they couldn't put the car back on because the tire was going. So now we've got Verstappen coming in to change his tires, but he will come out and he will still have a second. He will still be 10 seconds ahead of second place. So this is almost ridiculous because we just did not think, looking at qualifying and looking at free practice, that the Red Bull was that much better than the rest of the field. And his tire change went very well. He got it done in 2.3 seconds. So we're on lap 38 now of 54 laps, and the running order is almost exactly the same as the starting order, with the exception that both Aston Martins have now moved ahead of George Russell. And will they? Yes, Alonso will pass Hamilton here in a couple of laps, maybe not even that. He is less than half a second behind, so the next DRS zone, Alonso is going to pass Hamilton. But again, this is the top 8 cars, and the top 8 cars started the race, and the top 8 cars are in almost exactly the same positions, where the difference is that the Mercedes and the Aston Martins are going to swap positions. But other than that, we may see, we've got enough race left, we may see Alonso, and Alonso, as I mentioned, would take him, and he just did. And Hamilton is trying to pass him back again, and Hamilton did get past him again, and that's DRS. Now, this is the type of racing that we really wanted to see. We wanted to see these guys fighting for position, but Alonso's car is just a better car than Lewis Hamilton, and Alonso is equally as good a driver as Lewis Hamilton. Remember, Alonso has also been a world champion a few times. So Hamilton is going to lose this battle ultimately. The only question that I was about to make is, can Alonso take over the 4th position and maybe the 3rd position? He's about 10 seconds behind Leclerc with about 16 laps to go. So he would need a better part of a third of a second to each lap. And right now, fighting Hamilton is going to slow him down, strangely enough, as strange as it may seem, but it is going to do that. But he will pass Hamilton on the next DRS zone and get ahead, and then he will be able to take it. So he should be coming up right. He did not try it right here, which is interesting. Let's see, is he going to do it? Yes. No, he changed his mind. So I guess he was just a little too far back in that DRS zone to come on past him. So anyway, we'll see here in a few minutes in laps. In fact, here he goes. Yeah. Oh, and Hamilton is doing a beautiful job of blocking him. Now, what's going to happen here is if Hamilton does this too much, he will get either a black flag to begin with and then a blue flag telling him he has got to let Alonso pass, because right now Hamilton has a slower car and Alonso is going to take him now, and he's got him. He has got him, and no, he didn't. Yes, he did. He went on the outside and now he's gone on the inside, and now he has got him and he is gone. So, as I mentioned, and I thought Hamilton would lose that battle, and Hamilton has lost that battle, and now Alonso can focus on now catching Carlos Sainz. But at least that was a really interesting here 2 or 3 minutes of the race, which is really what we wanted to see, what we want to see in all the races. We want to see a lot more of this battle for position. But when one car is noticeably faster than another one, then the F1 stewards will step in, and typically it's a blue flag. They put out a blue flag and they say, let the guy pass and get out of the way. But Alonso really outsmarted Lewis Hamilton on that, because he made Hamilton think he was going to pass him on the outside going through the turn, and actually he darted to the inside, took him on the inside, and then there was nothing Hamilton could do. So this is where Alonso's experience as a driver really paid off. He showed Hamilton that at 42 years old, which Alonso is, that he is a better driver than Lewis Hamilton right now. So that's gonna play on Lewis Hamilton's mind a little bit, because during the pre-race interview, Lewis Hamilton was asked if he would stay in Formula One racing until he got his 8th title, and he said yes. And what we have just seen showed that Lewis Hamilton is not the Lewis Hamilton that he was 2 years ago, because I don't think the Lewis Hamilton 2 years ago would have fallen for that trick that Alonso just pulled on him. So anyway, as I mentioned, they're all back. They've all got the tires. They're going to finish on these tires. So Alonso is picking up time nicely. He now has the fastest lap, and in about 3 laps he will be in a position to take 4th place away from Carlos Sainz. Now that fight with Lewis Hamilton cost him a couple of seconds on Leclerc, so Leclerc now is up on him by about 12 seconds. But let's say we've got 14 laps to go, so half a second a lap, and he could maybe get a podium position on the last couple of laps. And we've got our first piece of excitement, actually 2 pieces. Lando Norris just about took out Lewis Hamilton, and the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc is now out of the race, and we have a yellow flag. So that yellow flag is going to bunch up all the cars, that huge lead. Well, it's a yellow flag, so that means they have to slow to half race speed and maintain position. So it's not going to bunch up the field too badly, but it is going to bring in some excitement. It will bring to the fact that Fernando Alonso can now make podium, because he has a faster car than Carlos Sainz. So we may see Fernando Alonso put Aston Martin onto the podium for the first time in I don't know how long, but I promise you before next week's podcast, I will look up that and bring that information to you. That is really interesting. So Leclerc has brought his car to a standstill very close to one of the exits on the track. So in fact, the safety crew now are just pushing it back. So we'll leave this yellow flag here. So we're going to see a whole slurry of pit stops as with let's see, 10, 12 laps to go. We're going to see all the leaders come in and put in a set of new tires to finish the race on. So Charles Leclerc is obviously not a happy camper. We haven't heard yet exactly what happened, and I'll turn the sound down again now. I was trying to find out if we could hear exactly what happened to Leclerc, but obviously my guess would be it's something to do with the power pack or the transmission for him to abruptly finish like that. But with 12 laps to go, Fernando Alonso is just 2.5 seconds behind Carlos Sainz. So we should come out of this yellow flag position in about 2 laps. So let's say with 10 laps to go. So by lap 50, Alonso should be in third place. And so I think we're going to see Verstappen, Perez, Alonso, Sainz, and then Hamilton, Stroll, or Hamilton and then Stroll in the top 6 positions, unless of course Stroll can get up and past Hamilton. But a really good day, I guess, for Aston Martin. A pretty normal day for Red Bull. And all in all, not a really exciting race for us, the spectators and the podcasters and all that kind of stuff. But let's see what the next race. The next race, of course, is in 2 weeks. And in 2 weeks, incidentally, this podcast will be coming to you from North Carolina. Because my twins will be at the NCAA National Championship race for swimming. My daughter will not be swimming. She swam last year and did become an NCAA champion. My son didn't, because that year he broke his foot. This year he has made the national championship team again. And so hopefully he will come away with a championship trophy at the end of it all. But you will get your normal podcast. It won't look any different to you because I take all of my podcast equipment with me. But you will get the pet podcast coming to you. So we're watching a little bit of replay going on while we're waiting for them to complete the cleanup of the track. Cleanup being the removal of Leclerc's car. Leclerc got a little scooter ride and is back to the pits now. But all the cars have run through, and we are just seeing Esteban Ocon now retiring from the race as well. He's getting out of his car, so I don't know what the reason for that is, other than it was pretty much pointless him staying out there anymore, because all he was doing is putting wear and tear on the car. And here's an interesting fact. Pierre Gasly has just taken the fastest lap of the race. And I say just taken because as I was talking to you, the race restarted here. And so we have exactly 10 laps to go. It's not going to be on lap 50 that Fernando Alonso takes a podium position. It's going to be in the next 2 laps, because now he is 0.8 of a second behind Carlos Sainz, and so we're going to see Aston Martin, unless something dramatic happens in the last 10 laps. We're going to see Aston Martin on the podium for the first time in a long time. Okay, we're coming up. Fernando Alonso is about to put himself on lap 45 here into a podium spot for this race. So I guess the nice, exciting thing is that we're going to see real competition from Aston Martin. There's been a lot of criticism of the Aston Martin leadership over the years, but I mean, you've got to give them a lot of credit. They have got 2 really good cars out on the track today, and Lance Stroll is not going to get past Lewis Hamilton, because he is a good 7 seconds now behind. I don't know what happened, but we are going to see Alonso here in just a moment, and he's positioning himself right now, but he is going to pass the Ferrari. He's got DRS, and the next DRS zone, he's within probably 1/4 of a second. So in the next DRS zone, you're going to see him pass the Ferrari, and it's going to come right now, and he is going to go past him. He's going to take him outside, inside. No, he didn't get it down. This is really why we like to watch Formula One. We love to see these battles going on. Carlos Sainz knows he doesn't have the car Alonso has, and Alonso is going to get him here on this DRS zone, and there's nothing that he's going to be able to do about it. Sainz just locked up, trying to stay in front. But Alonso had to back up a little bit there to save himself from running into Sainz. But now with DRS, of course, he's got him. And now, for the first time in a very long time, Aston Martin have found themselves in a podium position with just 8 laps to go in the Bahrain Grand Prix. This is exciting stuff. I'm really happy for Aston Martin. Of course, being an Aston Martin fan for a long time, when I was a kid, the Aston Martin was the car to have. In my younger days, I did have an Aston Martin for about, I don't know, 3-4 months. That's all the time I could stand the thing. It was a dog to drive. It took almost both feet to push in the clutch pedal on that thing. I had an Aston Martin DB8 and a beautiful car. It was really heavy and really tough to drive. But whoever did all of that stunt driving in those James Bond movies was much bigger and stronger than I am, because I really had a tough time with the clutch, which is why I had to let it go. So a replay of the pass by Fernando Alonso really demonstrates, the ability of Carlos Sainz to try and keep blocking him, but also the brain of Fernando Alonso outdoing the brain of Carlos Sainz. But Sainz had to know that there was no way he was going to stop Alonso getting past him, because Alonso had made up 2.5 seconds in 3 laps. So he just has a much better, much faster car. And I've just noticed something. I've been telling you all along that this was a 54 lap race, and age must be creeping in, because it's actually a 57 lap race. So now we actually have 10 laps to go. So there was a lot more time for Alonso to get past Carlos Sainz, and if Charles Leclerc had actually stayed in the race, then I'm pretty sure he would have made 3rd position anyway. But right now, we've got Hamilton challenging Carlos Sainz. So, in fact, Hamilton, no, he did. I thought he was going to pass him right there. This is why we really enjoy Formula One, and this is what I really wanted to see. The challenges for position late in the race here is really good. Now, it's not a challenge for the lead. That's not going to change. Unless Verstappen's car just quits on the side of the road. But even then, Checo Perez has a 26-second lead on Alonso. So pretty much if something happens to one of those two guys, the top 3 positions now are not going to change. Alonso is I don't understand why Hamilton. No, Hamilton. My eyes were having playing tricks on me there. Hamilton is right at half a second behind Ferrari, so it's only going to be a matter of time. I don't understand what happened to the Ferrari's pace, because it was quite evident they, especially in qualifying and practice, they had a fast car, but they've just showed again Alonso passing the Ferrari, and it's obvious that the Ferraris do not have the pace that they had last year, especially through the corners. Last year, Ferrari was not that fast down the straightaway, but they had a significant advantage in the corners. And it looks like this year they haven't gained any advantage on the straightaway, but they've lost their advantage in the corners. And we still see Lewis Hamilton trying to get past trying to get past Carlos Sainz, and whether he's going to succeed or not, I don't know, because it looks like Sainz has opened up a little bit of a gap on him. Maybe Hamilton's tires are going away a little bit on him, or maybe Hamilton, as I just noted a little while ago, Hamilton does not seem to have that thing that he had as a driver a couple of years ago. It's like he's lost his edge or something. Something is quite different about the way Hamilton is driving. Did that loss of the 2021 championship take something away from him? Not a tangible physical thing, but something in his mind, in his brain. Did something get taken away? Because at this level, it's like any other sport, at this level, the difference between the drivers is not the physical capabilities. It doesn't matter if it's tennis or football or cricket or rugby or any of the sports. It doesn't matter. the physical abilities of all of these athletes are the same. The difference is the brain. The difference is how the brain can work out how to be the best that there ever has been and the best that there is that day. And it does not look like Hamilton's brain has figured that out today. But, you know, we've still got 8 laps to go. So right now we're on the 50th lap. So we'll say, 8 with the 50th lap, 8 laps to go. So we'll see if he manages to do it. He is, let's see, he's still half a second behind, but just does not seem to be able to make up that difference. Now you'd think with DRS, he would be able to do that, but he needs to be able to make it up in the corners to be able to have DRS make the difference that he needs it to be, because the Ferrari, like I say, does not look like it has improved on flat down the straightaway speed over last year. But even with that, the Ferrari was faster than the Mercedes last year down the straightaway. Okay, we are on lap 55 of 57. We have 54 laps complete. And Lewis Hamilton lost the battle with Carlos Sainz. Sainz has now opened up a 2-second lead. What's interesting, and I guess really good for the Williams team, they've got now 10th and 12th position. It's exciting for that, but these positions really have been gained and lost, not by the drivers passing each other and stuff like that. Yeah, there's been a little bit of that, not as much as I would have liked to have seen. Most of it has been in team strategy, pit stops, all that kind of stuff. So the other interesting thing is, after today's race, Aston Martin will be in position number 2 for the Constructors' Championship, because they're going to come home with 3rd and 6th. Mercedes are going to come home with 5th and 7th. That will put them in 3rd position. Ferrari will come home in 4th and not dead last, 19th. So a really, really interesting start to the season. Who would have thought Aston Martin, who came from, I don't know what they were last year, 7th or 8th, was so far back it wasn't worth looking. But now I'm going to look. For next week's the next podcast, I'm going to look that up. I'm going to look up when was the last time they had a podium, and when was the last time, what was their position on the Constructors' Championship last year. So you've got to say that the two teams that had an exceptional day today were the Aston Martins and the Williams. And 2 teams that just had an absolute disastrous day was Ferrari and McLaren. What has happened to McLaren, I don't know, but Lando Norris, of the cars still running on the track, is in dead last, and he's been lapped, I think, twice. In fact, Verstappen has lapped everybody on this track. He just lapped Valtteri Bottas a little while ago. So he's lapped everybody except the top 7 positions, and that's not going to happen. But it's just amazing. It's just crazy amazing. Sorry, that wasn't Bottas that he lapped. It was Joe Granu. But so that makes it a little more respectable. That means he's lapped everybody up to position 13. So, but still, that's just an incredible dominance again by Red Bull and Verstappen. It looks like they're picking up where they left off, which, to be honest, is nice, but it's not what I would like to see. I really want to see Ferrari and now Aston Martin and Mercedes and Williams and Alpine and all these. I want to see these guys really compete for winning these races. I mean, these cars yesterday during qualifying were just so close, just 1.1 second between pole and the last and the 20th place. And today, even with the fastest car running, like I just mentioned, Lando Norris is 2 laps down on Max Verstappen. what happened in 24 hours? But this is Formula One, and the nice thing about Formula One, I think why a lot of people watch it, guys like me that watch it and do podcasts on it, is because a lot of unexpected things do happen. So it's only the first race of the season. If you remember last year at this time, I think Ferrari took the first 4 races. So, but then after that, just faded away to nothing. And I feel bad for Leclerc that he jumps into the first part of the race here, and the first race of the season, and he drops out, because I'm sure that is not what he wanted or he expected. But anyway, we are on the last lap now, and so it's going to close out. Verstappen, Perez, and Alonso will take podium positions. Carlos Sainz will not. He had the opportunity, but he lost it, both to a better team and a better driver, I'm going to say, this year. Certainly, the Aston Martin is a better car than the Ferrari this year. They've proven that this morning, and they've proven it all through testing and free practice, and also yesterday in qualifying. Although Ferrari did out-qualify Aston Martin, it was quite evident that it was about, I don't know, 4 or 5 thousandths. No, it was 5 thousandths for Max Verstappen, but it was maybe 4 or 5 hundredths of a second that was separating them all. So a very, very good day for Red Bull. A very good day for both Aston Martin and Williams. The Williams especially have got to be really happy with that, because Logan Sargent, in his first ever Formula One race, is going to come home in 12th position. So I would expect to see him making points here in the next couple of races. Alex Albon, who is the number 1 driver for Williams, is coming home. He's going to be in 10th position. So he is going to get both championship points for himself, and he's also going to get championship points for Williams. The top 10 places get points, the bottom 10 do not. And Max Verstappen has just come across the finish line, and Sergio Perez will follow him in about 8 seconds, and here he comes right now. So an exciting day, not really. An eventful day, yes, especially the event. Ferrari is a surprise. McLaren is a huge surprise. One car didn't finish, and the other one was so far down in the pack it's not even worth talking about, which is a huge difference from last year, because yes, Danny Ricciardo might not have been finishing up high, but at least he finished every race. I don't think they dropped out once, and Lando Norris managed to keep himself there in the top 10 all season long, except I think 1 or 2 races. But this is a huge surprise. Something is terribly wrong at the McLaren team, and also something's terribly wrong with Ferrari. Now, Ferrari changed out their team principal over the last in the off season. Got a new team principal. They've got a new strategist, and they have a new team engineer. Maybe it's time to go back to the old one. Who knows? But anyway, it's been great talking to you today, and we've got to thank our sponsors, Thinology, L American, Cloud Hub, and Give Send Go for their sponsorship of this podcast. Especially our premier sponsor for this race has been Cloud Hub. And I'd encourage you all, if you like social media, to give Cloud Hub a try. It doesn't censor anybody. It's got a lot of really neat features. I think I told you about them yesterday. Able to talk to each other in your own language, but talk in your language, and the other person hears it in his or her languages. And so forth. It's a really nicely put together site. It's got a lot of subscribers. It's got more subscribers than Truth Social, which is Donald Trump's social platform, which you don't hear much about anymore, but hopefully they can also pick up, because we really want to see these guys taking business away from Facebook. And of course, you all know with Twitter now in decent hands, it's become a pretty decent platform. But anyway, it's good to see CloudHub out there contributing, and I want you to go to cloudhub.com, sign up, and become a member. There's all kinds of neat features out there that you can partake in, and I really encourage you to do that, and that is cloudhub.com. And of course, we must finish this weekend, the first weekend of the year, by thanking our producer and technical guru, Andre Kuhn. Thank you, Andre, for all the great work you do and you're doing. And we will see you next week. We won't have a race, but we will have a podcast. And we will see you next week. And again, have a great week. This is Jonathan Steele with the Formula One News Hour saying goodbye.